It was the day of the running quarterbacks. Haynes King, great for Georgia Tech. Jackson Arnold shines for Auburn. He wasn't the MVP that gave Hugh Freeze what he needed.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another reaction episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest and craziest sport on planet Earth. Georgia Tech, Colorado reaction will come in segment 2. 3 games that are under the radar you need to keep your eye on for this weekend, all in today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Jackson Arnold was making play after play after play for the Auburn Tigers and gets them a win that Hugh Freeze needed. Dave Aranda wanted it, but Hugh Freeze needed it. But Jackson Arnold isn't the guy that actually delivered here. I still have questions about the Tigers quarterback situation going forward because I watched that Auburn offensive line absolutely dominate. And you know what? I credit Hugh Freeze. I had questions about Auburn. I'd pick Baylor to win this game. I went 1-1 on my big game picks here tonight, but I picked Baylor to win this game because I wasn't sure how the offense would be. I didn't like that they were so mismatched on that side, but you know what? They were able to keep it incredibly simple in this game. They had a touchdown drive. I think it was their second to last one. They went down the field. I'm pretty sure they ran 3 plays. It wasn't a 3-play drive. They were running 3 different plays. Zone, power, RPO. That was it. That's all they needed because the Baylor defensive line could not match up. The secondary, the linebackers, they all could not tackle, could not get a consistent push. This was the easiest game Jackson Arnold against a Power 4 team is going to play all season long because he was 11 of 17 for 108 yards. I am not sold after this game on the fact that Jackson Arnold has been fixed by the Auburn Tigers system and Hugh Freeze. I am sold on the fact that Auburn's got the tools to be a good team, perhaps better than I thought they would be. We'll see if that holds up over the course of the year, but we'll see how often they're able to just physically overwhelm their opponents in the trenches. That's what this game came down to. Sawyer Robertson, who's got way more arm talent than a lot of people probably realized, went for 419 yards and 3 touchdowns, did not turn the football over. And Baylor lost this game by 2 touchdowns at home. Not a good look for the Bears. I'll get to them more in a moment. But back to Auburn here. Hugh Freeze needed to get this win. And those who have been with me for a long time here on the channel will remember this. I'm bringing this back this year. There are 5 designations you can get from me based on the result of a particular game. They range on a scale from outright loser, the worst thing you can feel, to outright winner, the best thing you can feel. There's also a lean win, a lean lose, and a no vibe whatsoever. For Auburn, this is definitely a lean win. I almost go no vibe because on paper, Auburn should have won this game, and they did win the football game. But it's a game they easily could have lost. You're playing a Power 4 team on the road. This is a good start to the year. It's a good start to the year. What this has to be for Auburn to build on this is a foundational game where their passing attack gets more in rhythm. I had 1, maybe 2 throws that I was able to think of when I sat down to record to talk about this game that made me go, oh yeah, Jackson Arnold did make that throw. Cam Coleman had 1 catch for 23 yards. 1 catch for 23 yards. And Auburn put up 38 points. How many games this year on Auburn's schedule do you think that's going to work for? Their next 2 games, yeah, Ball State and South Alabama, the game can look just like this. Arnold can throw for less than 150 yards, and you can physically enforce your will. That Auburn offensive line is the MVP of this game, and I thought was clearly the best unit on the field and probably will be in any given game for the Auburn Tigers going forward this year. We'll see if this matchup against Oklahoma that looms later this year, we'll see if that matchup is able to play out like this and result in an Auburn win. How many times can you go through SEC play, throw for 108 yards, and win the game? Not very many times. So this is not a segment to say Auburn is actually terrible. This is a segment to say I like a few things about Auburn. Kendrick Falk on the defensive line, dude. Well, we kind of knew that, but we also saw that show up. That's a good thing. But that you played this game, put up 38 points, you could look at, if you want to look at it through a more positive lens, you could say Auburn put up 38 points and Cam Coleman had one catch for 23 yards. Yeah, you can say that. But I have no faith at the moment that if Jackson Arnold needs to, against a quality opponent, can go for 250 to 300 yards and 2 touchdowns if called upon. I picked Baylor going into this game because they were at home and because they had the better quarterback. Well, they have the better passer. Jackson Arnold, though, is a runner. We know he's really good at that, and we saw that in this game. And I credit the Auburn coaching staff in a huge way. They didn't overcomplicate things. They didn't outthink the room. They just went with what worked consistently. I know that sounds really simple, but guess what? I watch coaches outthink the room and get away from what works all the time. I'll have a perfect example of that in the second segment when I talk about Georgia Tech and Colorado. So this is a lean lose for Baylor. This is not the sky's falling absolute disaster. It certainly is a poor performance. It should have been better at home, but you got beat in the trenches. That's what it came down to. Sawyer Robertson was under too much pressure. They ran for 64 yards. Auburn ran for 308. Both teams tonight ran for 300 yards that won the marquee football games, Auburn and Georgia Tech. And let me talk about Baylor here for a moment before I get to that other game. Baylor this doesn't end Baylor's season. Like, I don't go with a no vibe on Baylor because I picked them to win the game. And plenty of people picked them to win the game. And this was a winnable game. Situationally, they weren't quite good enough. In the trenches, they weren't quite good enough. But are you going to face as many teams that are as tough as Auburn up front? Time will tell, but I don't think so. You play SMU next week, you need to win that game. You do need to win that game. Dave Aranda at 0-2 going into the game against Samford. They opened Big 12 play with Arizona State. You can't be sitting there at 1-3. That is hot seat central for Dave Aranda if they cannot find a way to beat SMU. It's a road game. It is an in-state matchup against the Mustangs, who are a preseason top 20 team in the country coming into this year. I think Boise State showed us what preseason rankings can mean sometimes. That's a winnable game for Baylor. This was a winnable game for Baylor. I thought coming into the year they'd split. They better go get a split. But the good news for the Baylor Bears is that your quarterback played pretty darn well. Yeah, he was 27 of 48. You know why? He was running for his life a lot of the time. He was getting knocked down. How many times did you watch this game and Sawyer Robertson was on the ground, was getting up, and he was limping a little bit? Baylor had a couple of touchdowns on fourth down in this game. One of them was a coverage bust from Auburn. This was a really good defensive game plan by the Tigers, and it was a good offensive game plan. I just don't know how translatable that offensive game plan is throughout the course of the year for Auburn if they want to go win 8, 9, or 10 football games this season, but certainly a good start. For Baylor, not as good of a start, but if Baylor goes back next week and beats SMU on the road, I think it'll be really easy to forget about this one. I really do. I think you'll be able to go, oh, okay, we're all right. We're all right. Went on the road, beat SMU. That's a good football team. But, boy, what a game from Jackson Arnold. Running the football. I already knew he could do that. I question whether he could throw the ball. So, still have questions there. But, boy, you go for 308 yards on the ground, that's going to win you a lot of football games. Georgia Tech knows a thing or two about that. I loved what I saw from the Yellow Jackets, and I looked very right on Colorado. First, this episode brought to you by Game Time. As you can hear, college football is back. I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the actual game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. It can be a nightmare. Game Time is here to help you out. Game Time is the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. That might be my favorite part. You can get great deals. You can get their zone deals as well, where you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats and you save big. But you get the tickets right to your phone. I've used Game Time on multiple occasions. The process has been great. Found a great deal, knew what to expect, no surprise fees. Game Time's the way to go for your college football tickets this year. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo codes LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, all one word, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So, sloppy start for Georgia Tech. 3 turnovers in the first quarter. They had a 12-play stretch offensively in the first half with 3 turnovers, an interception and 2 fumbles. One on a bad snap, one on a bad handoff. And they still won the game on the road. So, similar to Auburn, I wonder about Georgia Tech's passing game. Now, I liked the Yellow Jackets last year. I like them this year. They are my favorite ACC dark horse title contender. They looked like one for a half, sort of. This was not a very well-played game by Georgia Tech. But if you were a team that is towards the top of your own conference, playing a team that I think is at the best in the middle of their own conference in 2 leagues that we perceive to be on relatively equal footing in the Big 12 and ACC, you should still find a way to win the game. Georgia Tech goes for 320 yards on the ground to the tune of 6.8 yards per carry. Colorado racks up 1 sack and 3 TFLs in the game. This looked like the same old Colorado. This looked like the Colorado team that was waiting for the magical play from Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and it never showed up. Why? Because those guys aren't there. That was my concern with the Buffs going into this season. Caden Salter has got some serious arm talent. He is not prolific as a runner, nor is he confident as a runner. That cost Colorado a couple times in this game. And he missed a couple of throws in key situations late in the game that Shedeur made last year. That was it. I don't think this was an incompetent performance by Colorado. I want to give Robert Livingston some credit while also acknowledging on that side of the ball, the defense, he's got some work to do. Because, man, the number of open lanes Georgia Tech created, and watching their offense is really fun. It's unique. The way they use fly sweeps more than anybody else in college football is really great, and they run their quarterback a ton. But if they're going to go toe-to-toe with Clemson, Haynes King has to throw the ball better. One throw in particular in the fourth quarter, Georgia Tech was driving, trying to take the lead. They had a 3rd and 18. They ran a little switch corner route concept, and Colorado just didn't pass things off correctly. Tight ends wide open. Haynes King barely even gave the guy a chance to put his hands on it. Those are the sorts of moments, in addition to the interception that he threw, that just simply can't happen. So that has to improve, just like with Jackson Arnold. I do, because of the caliber of schedule that Georgia Tech is going to play this year, have more faith in the Yellow Jackets' ability to just run all over their opponents and ultimately win. But by the Clemson game on September 13th, and that is a home game for Georgia Tech, boy, the Yellow Jacket fan base should be absolutely on fire for that one. When Clemson comes to town, you're not going to be able to run for 320 yards. Colorado is still deficient in the trenches. Schematically, they allow way too many explosive runs. They don't create enough negative plays. I was low on the Buffs coming into this year. I looked very right after this game. You had 3 turnovers come your way in the first quarter. They scored once. Georgia Tech had 3 turnovers in a 12-play span, and Colorado was up 7-0. That's not good enough. Now, this is week 1. Team seasons are not defined in week 1. It's a time for observations, not conclusions. The 2025 Colorado book has not yet been written, nor has it been written for Georgia Tech. But I liked what I saw out of the Yellow Jackets because their ability to go and run the ball like that, I saw it be translatable last year. And so when I see them go and do the same thing again, they were moving up and down the field at will, running the ball. It was not hard. Haynes King, 19 carries, 156 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It was the day of the running quarterback. And Would I like to see Eric Rivers get more involved in the passing game? Yeah, they used him in the rushing game as well. He is a dynamic player. They have got a lot of guys that just feel like they are always one broken tackle away from housing it for a touchdown. So I like that from the Yellow Jackets a whole heck of a lot. But for Georgia Tech to have found a way to win this game is overall a good sign. But this stays in the lean win category. And frankly, this is a no vibe result for me for Colorado, which I'll get to more in just a moment. But just to wrap up on Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets get a lean win here because they played like a C- game and they went on the road. I mentioned earlier, almost forgot to come back to this. Colorado could not stop the run the whole game. Georgia Tech had already fumbled the ball twice, but they were marching up and down the field with the rushing attack, and all of a sudden, Georgia Tech wants to whip out the play action pass. Why? Why? That's not who you are. It's not who you need to be. Against better teams, you probably do need to have that in your back pocket, where a 1st and 10 isn't always a run play. Against Colorado, no, it isn't. It just isn't. You can run the ball as much as you want. And once those things got cleaned up in the second half, Georgia Tech pulled away. And then Colorado, to their credit, Caden Salter led him on a really good drive going down the field to score the touchdown. He runs it in to tie the game. And then the Colorado defense has a chance at home to pick up a signature win to begin the year. I mean, I wasn't expecting Colorado to win the game. I picked Georgia Tech to win and cover. Lo and behold, they did. So I think that for the Yellow Jackets, this is a good result because they played poorly and they still found a way to win against it's an okay Colorado team. But for the Buffs, same sorts of issues. I do think the offensive line looked better. I won't say great. Colorado ran for 146 yards on 4.7 yards a carry. Actually, that's a little bit better than I was expecting, quite frankly. But Caden Salter only threw for 159 yards and a touchdown. That's going to have to be better. The receiving corps got involved a couple times. Amarian Miller had one catch for 39 yards. Those are the sorts of plays Colorado has to create more of if they're going to, go past my expectation and actually make a bowl game or be a Big 12 title contender this year. But Georgia Tech only sacked Caden Salter one time. He's shifty. He's shifty. And that's the good news is the offensive line, I do think looked legitimately better. It still isn't great, but having a quarterback that can move around a little bit, that can get away from a sack, yeah, that's a good sign. But this game for Colorado played out almost exactly how I expected it to. I picked Georgia Tech to win and cover. I thought they had to contain the Georgia Tech rushing attack. I didn't think they would. They didn't. 320 yards per game on the ground. Some of that is personnel, to be sure, but some of that is scheme. I mean, you just time and again had no answers. And Haynes King, you could just see the running plays opening up. And other teams are going to watch that film and go, oh, let's run a lot of read option. Let's get some fly sweeps going because, man, Colorado has absolutely positively no idea how to defend that. And they didn't. And Georgia Tech, once they stopped trying to outthink the room, which they only did a couple times in their own defense, they realized, oh, we can just run it up and down the field at will. Brent Key, author of the famous quote, "Run the ball," is going to keep running the football. They did it last year. They did it very well tonight. That is a good, solid road win for Georgia Tech. It's nothing special. It's why that gets a lean win. But this is exactly what I expected from Colorado. And so they get a no vibe, and Georgia Tech's that lean win to me because they didn't play well. They were sloppy, but they were able to settle themselves down. Now they have a tune-up game before Clemson comes to town. They've got to get those things right. You can't give Clemson those sorts of turnovers, and Haynes King has to be better throwing the ball. I don't think he has to be great, but he's got to be better. I think Georgia Tech winning that game would look like Notre Dame last year beating Georgia in the college football playoff. That is how that game would have to play out. Can't wait for that matchup in a couple of weeks. Can't wait for 3 matchups that are flying under everybody's radar. Don't forget about these games this weekend. First, this episode brought to you by Upside. Hey, Locked On College Football fans, you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app, in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed. At first, you might think it's too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Check out the Upside app and start saving today. To wrap today's show, I wanted to mention 3 games that you need to be watching this weekend. They happen on various days because this is a glorious weekend where we get football on Saturday, we get football on Sunday, we get football on Monday of the college variety. None of this professional nonsense, of course. Game 1 that, frankly, I don't know if I've talked about enough. South Carolina and Virginia Tech, non-conference game, because why go to campuses? These awesome environments with electric home crowds where fans are that far away from their head coach who they might want fired. That could be Trent Bray if this season doesn't go very well. South Carolina's favored here by 8 points. I like the Gamecocks to win. I like the Gamecocks to cover. I'll take them 31-20. I don't know how much I can trust Virginia Tech, if at all, really, after last year. I need to see him prove it. I know the potential is there. They've got Kyron Drones back. Again, Trent Bray needs this game way more than Shane Beamer. I mean, way more than Shane Beamer needs a week 1 victory. And the Gamecocks are kind of a trendy, fun playoff discussion type team this year because they were so close last year. They have a lot coming back this season. There's a lot to like, not just Lenore Sellers. The rest of their team can be really good too. But for the Hokies of Virginia Tech, a win here, when they have Vanderbilt next week, don't you dare think Vanderbilt's a slouch. They beat Virginia Tech a season ago, and Diego Pavia is still there through the magic of NCAA waivers and public pressure. Virginia Tech needs this win a lot. This would be one of those wins that the anti-SEC crowd could turn their heads and go, oh, look at that. Look at that result right there. You couldn't beat Virginia Tech. I mean, they're just okay. They're not bad. They're good. They're okay. And they beat one of your playoff teams. I don't think that's happening here. I'm not some SEC homer. At least I don't think that I am. But I do think South Carolina wins this game. That says more about the Gamecocks to me than the Hokies. So that's first game. Second game, a traditional Pac-12 showdown. Did you know that Cal is going to Reser Stadium this week to take on Oregon State? Did you know that Oregon State has got one-time Texas, one-time Duke quarterback Malik Murphy behind center this week? Did you know former Boise State and Auburn head coach Brian Harsin is the offensive coordinator for the Bears? If you didn't know those things, now you do. This game, to me, features 2 coaches who very realistically, it is not far-fetched whatsoever to say at this time next year, they won't hold the current position that they have if this season winds up being a giant mess. You know how you avoid a giant mess? You get a quality win out of the gate. I'm not going to look at this game based on what Cal's expectations are. I know Oregon State is not what it was a couple of years ago when Jonathan Smith had them at their peak. They were 5-7 last year, playing mostly the Mountain West. That was a disappointing year. They got off to a good start, and the second half of the season, it all fell apart. Now they've got some stability at the quarterback position. They're at home. You know what Trent Bray is looking for? I talked about Oregon State coming into this year as needing to set themselves up for next season. Everything you see this year is a setup for next year when the Pac-12 is rebuilt into an 8-team football conference, maybe 9, we'll see. And you've got to lay a foundation. And if you don't lay that foundation, if this is another 5-7 or 4-8 kind of year, Trent Bray might not get a third season in Corvallis. Maybe the administration wants to go in a new direction, get a new head coach in a new conference, and get everything really starting fresh. So for Cal on the flip side, Ron Rivera is heavily involved. You've got the 5-star freshman, by the way, Jaren Kiave Sagapolotele, starting at quarterback. First game on the road. I like Oregon State in this one. I do. And I just think that's asking a lot Reser Stadium, I expect to be packed. The crowd's hair is going to be absolutely on fire, hopefully just metaphorically and not literally there for the Beavs faithful in Corvallis. But I think it's asking a lot for JKS to game one. He did beat out Devin Brown in a quarterback competition. Justin Wilcox's recent resume of picking the correct starter over the last couple years hasn't been spectacular all the time. So let's wait and see. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch Bryce Underwood against New Mexico just to see what he looks like. I'm excited to watch JKS against Oregon State. I'm excited to watch these guys because it's fun when you have someone that, even if I don't expect you to be a conference champion, a program looking at a 5-star or highly rated 4-star quarterback and saying, hey, even a guy like Malik Washington at Maryland, hey, what do you have? What can the future be? You start to dream. You start to think about what the future could really hold. Now, a lot of people are picking Oregon State to win this game. I'm among them. I'll take the Beavs to win it. I think this is 28-24. I think Oregon State sneaks this one out. Being at home is big. I just combined Trent Bray and Brent Pry in my head a little bit, but with just one letter there. Trent Bray calling the defensive signals for Oregon State in this one. I would really like to see that defense take a step forward because that's his side of the ball. He was the defense coordinator under Jonathan Smith. They're going up against a Cal offense. We have no idea what to expect. No one knows anything about JKS at the college level. Never seen it before. They have, 75 new players on offense. Maybe just the entire team. Everything feels new. Offensive coordinator, GM, quarterback, receivers, running backs. Everybody's gone. And there's been a lot of movement down there in Berkeley. So really interested to see how that one plays out because that game can contribute to the hot seat meter for either of those two coaches. So keep an eye on that one in Corvallis. And last but certainly not least, I touched on this game on an earlier reaction show this week talking about Boise State. Tulane plays Northwestern. It doesn't matter that Northwestern is projected to be a bottom third team in the Big Ten this year because the Big Ten is really, really deep. I mean, my preseason power rankings have Washington at 10th going into the year, and some people think Washington's a playoff caliber team. I'm not there. I do think they're a 7-8 win team. I've got them 8-4 in my official record prediction this year. I think they're solid. And Damon Williams, talk about young, exciting quarterbacks, he fits the bill. But Jake Retzloff was the BYU quarterback when the spring transfer portal window closed. Week 1 rolls around, and he's going down to Tulane. And with Boise State's loss, the Tulane Green Wave control their own destiny to go make the college football playoff. If they go 2-1 somehow, 1-2 could even do it. You have to have this one, though. You have to have this one. With Boise State getting embarrassed by South Florida earlier this week, in no way, shape, or form can Tulane take a loss in this position if they want to be seen as the Group of 5 team. And right now, I think they are. We'll see if the AP voters give South Florida the respect they deserve after they blasted Boise State, who looked horrible, but South Florida looked pretty darn good after a shaky first quarter. If Tulane is able to put a Power 4 win, that's what it is in the Group of 5 ranks. Doesn't really matter who you're playing, as long as you can say, hey, we've got a Power 4 win. That gives you an inherent level of credibility with the committee, voters, and college football public that can be hard to come by. So they've got to win that game against Northwestern. Preston Stone is starting there, former American Conference quarterback at SMU back when the Mustangs were there, all of 2 seasons ago. And I think Preston Stone is solid. I think he's capable. I don't know what the roster is going to be like there. I think David Braun's actually a pretty good coach. I think John Sumrall at Tulane is a really good coach. I'll take Tulane to win that game. I think they're going to do so comfortably. I'm going Tulane 34-17 over the Wildcats out of the Big Ten. So have a great weekend and enjoy Lee Corso's final game. I'll have another reaction show for you tomorrow, maybe the next day. The content is rolling along. It's football season. Hope you're as happy as I am. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.